Now, to begin work on federal spending for the remainder of this budget year, Republicans proposing a $1 trillion plan, about $60 billion less than the previous year. Now live House coverage here on C-SPAN.
Prayer will be offered by our chaplain, Father Coughlin.
You, Lord God, are our beginning and our end. For us to be aware of this leads to gratitude and petition. So we praise and thank you for all the blessings of the past, which brings us to this present moment. We seek your continued guidance and wisdom to accomplish great deeds in your holy name and give you glory, both now and forever. Amen.
The chair has examined the journal of the last day's proceedings and announces to the House his approval thereof. Pursuant to Clause 1 of Rule 1, the journal stands approved. The pledge today will be led by the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Jackson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The chair will entertain up to 15 one-minute requests on each side. For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania rise?
Request to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This week marks an important turning point in restoring fiscal sanity to our country as we begin consideration of a measure that will reduce federal spending by over $100 billion. Many members of Congress committed to this reduction, which will return federal spending to 2008 pre-stimulus levels. This is more than just a promise, Mr. Speaker. It's fundamental to the health of our economy and the security of our nation. The consideration of spending cuts must be careful and deliberate. The budget of every department must be scrutinized while keeping in mind the promises made to our constituents, mine in the 8th District of Pennsylvania, and the millions who showed concern across America with our growing deficit. It is notable that for the first time this resolution will be considered under an open rule to allow this process to be collaborative. I'm sure at times it will be trying, but I'm looking forward to working with my colleagues toward the collective goal of reducing our deficit. The federal deficit did not get out of hand overnight, and it certainly will not be fixed overnight. But serious and substantial cuts must be made. The $100 billion mark is not arbitrary, but rather marks an important milestone on the road to a sustainable federal budget. It requires tough choices, but choices that ultimately must be made for the economic health and security of this generation and the next. I yield back.
Time of the gentleman has expired. For what purpose does the gentleman from Illinois rise? Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the book of Matthew says, "For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." That is the biblical prescription for judging the priorities of politicians. We've seen the President's heart in his budget proposal. We've seen it in the continuing resolution that my Republican colleagues have offered. At a time when they're needed the most, vital safety net programs are on the chopping block. Funding to help low-income Americans with their heating bills, grants to states and cities for community development, Pell Grants, and much, much more. In the midst of the worst economy most of us have ever seen, we are cutting the legs of the unemployed, the underemployed, and the economically insecure right out from under them. It is clear to me that the President's tax deal with Republicans did not consider the depths of the nation's historic unemployment problem. So I'm reissuing my call for unemployed Americans to send their resumes and stories to resumesforamerica@mail.house.gov. We must organize ourselves. The unemployed party is larger than the Tea Party. No jobs are promised, but I will put your story in the congressional record so that our government that is supposed to be of, for, and by the people can begin to live up to the true meaning of its creed. resumesforamerica@mail.house.gov. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Time of the gentleman has expired. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas rise? Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, every Texas family must live within a budget. I don't understand why the federal government can't do the same. To get our fiscal house in order, we need to cut spending, balance the budget, pay down the debt, and shrink the deficit. As a fiscal hawk, I know in November the American taxpayers voted for Congress to roll back the failed stimulus spending. Stop bailing out Wall Street. End government motors. Stop saving Fannie and Freddie, and defund and repeal Obamacare. Plain and simple, the American people want Washington to tax less, spend less, and borrow less. The CR represents some tough choices, but I know the American public is willing to make some sacrifices now so we can make a brighter and better future for our children and grandchildren tomorrow. Yield back.
Time of the gentleman has expired. For what purpose does the gentleman from Tennessee rise? Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The State Department is in the process of determining whether it should grant a presidential permit for the construction of a TransCanada's Keystone XL pipeline, which could deliver up to 900,000 barrels of tar sands oils a day from Alberta, Canada, over 2,000 miles to refineries on the U.S. Gulf Coast. The proposed Keystone XL pipeline will put communities along its path at unnecessary risk by using conventional technology to carry a blend of raw tar sand oil called diluted bitumen. Diluted bitumen is a more corrosive and more likely to cause pipeline leaks than conventional oil. Already the Keystone 1 pipeline, which came online just 6 months ago, has experienced 7 leaks, and that is for a pipeline that TransCanada claims is the safest ever built. Considering the significant dangers of piping bitumen, I find it troubling that the pipeline's route goes directly through the Ogallala aquifer in the Midwest, which provides clean drinking and irrigation water to most of America's heartland. Despite the dangers of tar sands oil, U.S. regulators do not delineate between this new product and Standard Petroleum. We need new regulation. We need to put on hold the planned tar sands pipelines Keystone XL. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield the balance of my time.
Time of the gentleman has expired. What purpose does the gentlelady from Hawaii rise? Without objection, so ordered. Gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are here to speak about the CR, the continuing resolution, which is going to set forth the budget for the rest of this fiscal year. Yes, it is true. We all have a responsibility for the budget. But the bottom line for each and every one of us is, how does that budget affect us? How does it affect the people that we represent? Let's look at what the CR does. I think we all know that in the creation of jobs, we must invest in America. We must invest in each and every one of you. When you look at a CR that basically eliminates and puts a chilling effect on all of the major investments that we need, we know that's not the right way to go. But more importantly than that, this is a CR that's going to cut the future, cut those students, 200,000 of them, who rely on Head Start. We all know that we got to invest in them now. It's also going to cut those middle-class kids who are going to college on Pell Grants, $800 apiece. So when we hear about the budget generally, let's not forget, it's the people, it's the kids that matter. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Time of the gentlelady has expired. What purpose does the gentleman from Georgia rise? Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Republican CR is another broken promise that will eliminate thousands of good-paying jobs in construction, law enforcement, research, and education, and public safety. This is just more of the same, and this turns us into a pink slip nation. I believe that's what the goal of the Republicans is. And this bill will cost us jobs today, tomorrow, and in the future by failing to invest in our infrastructure and by failing to invest in education. Mr. Speaker, the mistakes the majority intends to make today will not be very easy to reverse, and I urge the majority to keep its promise to America, which is, it's all about jobs. Thank you.
Time of the gentleman has expired. What purpose does the gentleman from Georgia rise?
Mr. Speaker, by the direction of the Committee on Rules, I call up House Resolution 92 and ask for its immediate consideration.
The clerk will report the resolution.
House Calendar Number 9, House Resolution 92, resolved that at any time after the adoption of this resolution, the Speaker may, pursuant to Clause 2B of Rule 18, declare the House resolved into the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union for consideration of the bill, H.R. 1, making appropriations for the Department of Defense and the other departments and agencies of the government for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2011, and for other purposes. The first reading of the bill shall be dispensed with. All points of order against consideration of the bill are waived. General debate shall be confined to the bill and shall not exceed 1 hour, equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Appropriations. After general debate, the bill shall be considered for amendment under the 5-minute rule. No amendment to the bill shall be in order except one, those received for printing in the portion of the congressional record designated for that purpose in Clause 8 of Rule 18, dated at least 1 day before the day of consideration of the amendment, but no later than February 15, 2011, and 2, pro forma amendments for the purpose of debate. Each amendment so received may be offered only by the member who submitted it for printing or a designee, and shall be considered as read if printed. When the committee rises and reports the bill back to the House with the recommendation that the bill do pass, the previous question shall be considered as ordered on the bill, and amendments thereto to final passage without intervening motion, except one motion to recommit with or without instructions. Section 2. During consideration of H.R. 1, Clause 2F of Rule 21 shall not apply to amendments addressing objects within more than one suballocation made by the Committee on Appropriations under Section 302B of the Congressional Budget Act of 1974. Section 3. The requirement of Clause 6A of Rule 13 for a 2/3 vote to consider a report from the Committee on Rules on the same day it is presented to the House is waived with respect to any resolution reported through the legislative day of February 17, 2011, providing for consideration or disposition of H.R. 1.
The gentleman from Georgia is recognized for 1 hour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For the purpose of debate only, I yield the customary 30 minutes to my new friend, the gentlelady from New York, Ms. Slaughter, pending which time I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Recognized for as much time as he may consume.
Mr. Speaker, during consideration of this resolution, all time is yielded for the purpose of debate only, and I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. Speaker, House Resolution 92 provides for a modified open rule for consideration of H.R. 1. This bill reaffirms our commitment to fiscal responsibility by implementing 2 main pillars of our pledge to America: to cut discretionary spending and to ensure an open and bipartisan debate. If you'd told me 6 months ago that I would have been standing here on the floor of the House, handling my very first rule on the floor of the House, and that we would have been succeeding on 2 pillars of the Pledge to America, I'd have told you that might have been wishful thinking. But we have come together as a House, not as Republicans, not as Democrats, but as a House to bring this process forward today. Now, you know, Mr. Speaker, as an experienced member of the Rules Committee in a former life, how unusual it is to have an open process on a continuing resolution. I dare say even the Dean of the House, the gentleman from Michigan, has not seen a continuing resolution come to the floor under the open process that we're bringing it under the floor under today. And that's important, because as I listened to 1 Minute this morning and I heard some folks on the left and heard some folks on the right who weren't quite happy with the way H.R. 1 turned out. You know, that was an important consideration over the past 4 years, even over the past 10 years, over the past 20 years, because if you weren't happy with the way a continuing resolution turned out when leadership brought it to the floor, too bad for you. You didn't have a voice. You didn't have a vote. You didn't have a process. It was take it or leave it, whether it was Republican leadership or whether it was Democratic leadership. Take it or leave it. In the 112th Congress, our new leadership said, we can do better. We have to do better, and the American people deserve better, and today we're fulfilling that promise. This open process will allow any member, Republican or Democrat, to come to the floor today, tomorrow, bring their amendments to the floor so that they can say, we don't think you got it right. My 600,000 constituents back home want to make a change. We think we can do better. We think you did too much. We think you didn't do enough. The first time a continuing resolution has come to the floor into this open process, I ran on that commitment of openness, Mr. Speaker, and I believe in that commitment of openness. I can't tell you how many times I said that if Speaker Nancy Pelosi rammed a bill through in the middle of the night, that was wrong. And if Speaker Newt Gingrich rammed a bill through in the middle of the night, that was wrong. That right and wrong are not partisan issues. Right and wrong are American issues. And I can't tell you how much I enjoyed our Rules Committee hearing last night, Mr. Speaker, where we had the ranking member and the chairman of the Appropriations Committee come forward, lay out competing views about where they think we should take spending in this country, and then agree to come to the floor over the next several days to offer amendments to work through that process to make sure that at the end of the day, no longer do we have a take it or leave it leadership bill from either side of the aisle, that at the end of the day, we have a bill that was truly the work product of this new 112th Congress, of this people's House. And it's just with tremendous pride, Mr. Speaker, that I take part in this debate today, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves his time. Gentlelady from New York.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the gentleman from Georgia for yielding me the customary 30 minutes, and I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentlelady is recognized for as much time as she may consume.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I come to the floor today still waiting for the majority to give us a chance to vote on legislation that will create jobs. We're now 6 weeks into the 112th Congress, and we have yet to see a jobs bill from the Republican majority. It's high time the majority party allows us to debate and vote on legislation to get Americans back to work. Instead, today we are debating dangerous and reckless legislation that will cut American jobs and seriously threaten our ability to build upon our fragile economic recovery. At a time when many Americans are still struggling to find employment, the Republican majority proposes a spending bill that ends construction projects, takes police off the street, and halts innovation that spurs job creation. This stands in stark contrast to the President's 2012 budget proposal that lowers our nation's deficit and creates jobs for Americans by investing in national priorities like education, infrastructure, and emergency energy technologies. Unlike some within the Republican Party, the American people are not looking to completely cripple the federal government and leave the nation to the corporate elite. Americans have repeatedly expressed a desire to make smart investments in our national priorities that leave our country more competitive now and into the future, and I stand today with the American people. The Republican slash-and-burn budget does nothing to achieve this goal. It even cuts the most fundamental public services, ending policing programs and defunding educational reform efforts here in the United States. As nations like China and India pour money into the research and development of solar panels, wind power, and high-speed trains, creating thousands of jobs for their citizens, the Republican majority is removing the most fundamental of investments in comparable American jobs. This reckless approach not only destroys jobs today, but also in the months and years to come. This is a critical time in America's history. And if we're to compete with nations like China, to create jobs in the United States and win the global marketplace, we must support our own nation with smart, targeted cuts that will lower the deficit but invest in American jobs. 6 weeks, as I said, into the new Congress, we are still waiting to see this smart, targeted plan to get Americans back to work. Instead, we see this hastily drawn-up CR that takes a meat axe to the middle class. And as America waits, the global economy moves ahead, leaving us behind. As the 112th Congress was sworn into office, we were bombarded with promises that an open and transparent process would make a triumphant return to this House floor. But as we now consider our first appropriations bill, we continue to stand here waiting for that grand return. Mr. Speaker, while this rule may have the word open in the title, I assure you this is not an open process. Through last-minute changes, convoluted parliamentary maneuvers, and a pre-printing requirement, The Republican majority has provided an extremely convoluted and restrictive process. An open rule means that as the legislative process proceeds, as an amendment passes, it may spark an idea for an amendment that another member may choose to offer with the changes that are made in the legislation. This rule takes away that ability. Also, the Republicans adopted in a party line vote at 9 p.m. last night a parliamentary sleight of hand that blocks the transfer of any money from one part of government to another. This means you cannot use an offset from one part of the bill to increase spending in a different part. In all my years serving in Congress, I have never seen such a blanket prohibition. And yet the leadership would have us believe this is an open process and that this is regular order. To top it all off, Republicans have even given themselves an escape hatch with martial law provision in the rule, which will allow them to report out a new rule for H.R. 1 that shuts down the amendment process without the normal one-day waiting period. This convoluted process has once again illustrated that the Republican Party continues to believe that claiming the sky is green will make it so. The truth is you can't create jobs with a press release. You can't fix the nation's health care system with a clever tagline. And you can't create an open and transparent Congress by creating an open rule in name only. My fellow Democrat colleagues and I are committed to living within our means while investing in the programs and policies that will help our country compete and win the global future. The Republican majority's continuing resolution couldn't be more dangerous to these values that we all hold dear. I urge my colleagues to stand up for our communities, support legislation that creates jobs, strengthens the middle class while reducing our deficit. Today's CR does not meet this threshold, and as a result, I urge my colleagues to vote no on today's rule, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlelady reserves her time. The gentleman from Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, you can't make everybody happy all the time. And in fact, I don't think that's the role of government. I could design a world.
Himself some time.
I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized for as much time as he may consume.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You've caught me both on my first rule on the floor and today where I'm just so pleased to be here because of the things that are going on here today, because of the changes that I believe in, both in terms of fiscal responsibility and in terms of openness here in the process. Now, I understand this rule isn't going to make everyone happy. You know, it doesn't make me happy because we're only here today, and it's been very confusing for folks back home, Mr. Speaker. We talked so much about receiving the President's budget on Capitol Hill yesterday. Of course, that was his budget for FY 2012. We're still here working on the budget for 2011. This is the fifth continuing resolution that we've had to try to get that process right, and it's the first one since I've been sworn in that we've been involved in. Now, I can tell you, as much of a voice as you have in this continuing resolution today, we have not seen this much debate or this many amendments in the last 4 continuing resolutions combined. In fact, I'm told that last night more than 400 amendments were filed to be eligible to come to the floor. Now, I hear from my friends on the Democratic side of the aisle, for whom I have deep respect and admiration, that they believe this bill was put together in a hasty process. I'll tell you, we've been working on this bill day and night for weeks. But then I hear from my friends that they're disappointed that we have a pre-printing requirement to allow for the thoughtful consideration of amendments, and they would rather it just be a willy-nilly process that happens here on the floor as folks come up with good ideas one by one. Well, I'll tell you, I look forward to that process. I very much hope we can have that as the appropriations bills move forward. But folks, this is a time of urgency. We have troops in harm's way overseas. We have economic development projects going on around this country that have no idea after March 4th whether there will be a single nickel available to support their cause. No idea. It is no way to run a government, and again, to put credit where credit is due and blame where blame resides, both parties over the last decade have been guilty of this horrendous practice of bringing continuing resolutions to the floor. Today we bring forward a bill that will put a stop to this process, that will get us through the end of 2011 and allow us to go through regular order to bring the remaining appropriations bills to the floor. And it's a process I very much look forward to. I see my friend Mr. McGovern in the chamber this morning. He and I had a discussion last night in the Rules Committee about how to go after some what I would call egregious tax subsidies, those things that happen on the tax side of the ledger that shouldn't happen. I believe in a fair code. I believe in a code that's transparent, that people understand. You'll see my fair tax pin that I'm wearing here today. I believe in fundamental tax reform. But today, we only have a chance to talk about FY 2011 spending. I want to have that discussion about fundamental tax reform. I want to have the discussion that the gentlelady from New York wants to have about entitlement reform, because I know precisely what my colleagues know, which is if we're going to be serious about budgets, that's where the dollars are, that's where the growth is, that's where the change has to come. But today we have, because it's an open process, simply one bill that we can deal with, simply one idea that we can deal with, and that one idea is spending for FY 2011. It would have been easy, Mr. Speaker, for this new House to have punted on making tough decisions. It would have been perfectly legitimate for this new House to say, we didn't cause this problem, we inherited this problem from last year's Congress, and we're just going to continue a continuing resolution on until the end of the year because we don't have the time or the commitment to start making tough choices. But we didn't. And I'm just so proud that we didn't. What we said is, we have 7 months left in the year. Let's start right now. Let's start right now, and let's lay these ideas out one by one by one, not in big general terms, but in specifics, line item by line item by line item across literally thousands of appropriations accounts. And we didn't say it's my way or the highway, Mr. Speaker. We said if you have a better idea, come to the floor and let's talk about it. If you have a better idea, if we did too much here, tell us where we did too much and tell us how we can do better. And if we did too little here, tell us where we did too little and tell us how we can make it better. I so look forward at the end of this rules consideration as we pass this rule and move forward into general debate to being able to engage in those amendments one by one, not in a back room somewhere, not off in the corner where it's just the leadership involved, but here on the floor of the People's House for all of America to see, line item by line item by line item, about where our priorities are. Now, I'll tell you, Mr. Speaker, you know as I know that every nickel we collect in federal revenue today goes to fund entitlements and service our national debt. And every nickel that we spend on every program we're going to talk about today, every program on the discretionary side, on the non-defense discretionary side, is a nickel that we borrow. So when we talk about are these things good to do, I promise you that that's not where my heart is today. I know there are some good programs out here that are doing good things. What I also know is we're borrowing every nickel to fund those programs from our children and our grandchildren. When we talk about priorities, one of those priorities is paying for what it is we commit this nation to. Again, my good friend Mr. McGovern was very persuasive last night when he said, for Pete's sakes, there are programs I don't agree with, but dadgummit, if we're going to be involved in them, we ought to fund them. And I couldn't agree with him more. That's hard. We received the President's budget just yesterday, and over a 10-year window, our systemic deficit never falls below 3%. Never falls below 3% of GDP. We don't even qualify to join the European Union. We are so devoid of fiscal responsibility at this point in our nation's history that we do not even qualify to join the European Union. I tell you, Mr. Speaker, that's a low standard. We should do better. We should do better. We can do better. We brought H.R. 1 to the floor today. This rule will bring it to the floor this afternoon so that we can do better. And I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves his time. The gentlelady from New York.
I'd like to yield myself about 30 seconds just to say that
for 30 seconds.
What I really would love to see us debating today is how we're going to get out of Afghanistan and stop paying $8 billion borrowed dollars a month for that. Also, in an editorial printed today, the New York Times said what I think a lot of us are saying, that we're cutting, this bill would cut vital government functions and not have any lasting impact on the deficit. I ask unanimous consent to put those in the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
I yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Colorado, a member of the Rules Committee, Mr. Polis.
The gentleman from Colorado is recognized for 3 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, America's top priority is creating jobs, but here we are 6 weeks into the 112th Congress, and the Republican leadership has yet to bring a single jobs bill to the floor. Once again, we're here today to exercise one of our primary constitutional responsibilities as members of Congress, to pass appropriations legislation to fund the many basic and essential programs of the federal government on which millions of Americans rely. Today is an incredible opportunity for Republicans and Democrats to work together to bridge the gap between parties and pass a bill that meets our shared goals of creating jobs, building infrastructure, and strengthening the economy. Sadly, the Republican leadership has brought to the floor a continuing resolution that jeopardizes American jobs and our economic future by rolling back investments that are necessary and important to help our private sector grow and help create jobs. This CR thoughtlessly makes extreme cuts to appease an extreme wing of the other party at the expense of the American people. This CR arbitrarily kills jobs. It would set our country back decades in scientific research simply because Republicans don't like what the science says. Worst of all, it puts our children's health at risk by handcuffing the EPA's ability to police polluters. The Clean Air Act guards the most vulnerable Americans, those with asthma, lung disease, children, older adults, people with heart disease and diabetes, from the dangers of airborne pollutants. Each year, the Act prevents tens of thousands of adverse health effects, including asthma attacks, heart attacks, and even premature death. This year alone, it was estimated by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency that the Clean Air Act will save 160,000 lives, and yet Republicans plan to starve this life-saving agency of its funding. Mr. Speaker, building an excellent public education system that provides each and every American the opportunity to succeed is the most important investment we can make in our future. As President Obama said in his State of the Union address, it's not just about how we cut, but what we cut. Education is an investment in our future, and we can't sacrifice our future. But Republicans, through this CR, seem willing to sacrifice our future to meet an arbitrary campaign pledge. By cutting to the heart of the learning needs of American children and youth through this extraordinary and nonsensical measure, Republican lawmakers clearly don't understand the meaning of investing in our future as a nation. Mr. Speaker, at the state and local level, my home state of Colorado also receives a slap in the face from this continuing resolution. A year ago, Highway 36, the highway that connects Boulder to Denver, was awarded a $10 million Tiger-TIFIA Challenge grant through the Recovery Act to expand one of the most used and heavily congested highways in our state. The $10 million federal investment helped to leverage additional funds in the area, creating $276 million in employment income and 7,200 jobs. This project impacts 191,000 employees, 10% of our state's total. This CR would rescind $9.1 million in funding without thought to details or consequences upon which the rest of the funding is built. This is a critical grant for Colorado that we were promised and received leverage. Can I request 30 additional seconds? There was 30 additional seconds.
Yes, I will yield, gentleman, 30 seconds.
Gentleman is recognized for 30 seconds.
Thank you. Colorado's US 36 corridor won the Tiger Award because it was one of the most innovative projects in the country. Mr. Speaker, Rome wasn't built in a day, and we can all agree that no state or community should be punished for being innovative. The American public needs and deserves real solutions. I encourage my colleagues to oppose the rule for this CR, as well as the underlying CR, to prevent the irresponsible impact of this Republican spending bill. And I yield back the balance of my time.
Time of the gentleman has expired. Gentleman from Georgia.
Mr. Speaker, at this time I'm pleased to yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Wolf.
The gentleman from Virginia is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of H.R. 1, that Congress must step up to reverse our nation's mounting deficit and debt. And this measure before us today takes an important step. This is an important effort, and we need to cut wasteful and duplicative spending. But the reality is these kind of cuts will never get us to a balanced budget. Let's be honest. Only 16% of our nation's spending is in non-security discretionary accounts. Today we're cutting over $100 billion from just 1/6 of the federal spending. The infamous bank robber Willie Sutton once said that he robbed banks because that's where the money is. In our government, the money is in the entitlements. For those who are concerned about funding for the sciences and education and medical research and infrastructure, as I am, the way to ensure that our nation can pay for the programs so many people care about is to deal with the mandatory spending entitlements. The President's State of the Union address was disappointing. He had a national forum to step up and embrace the recommendations of the National Commission on Fiscal Responsibility. The Bowles-Simpson Commission clearly recognized the looming fiscal crisis, and offered a framework for a serious national conversation to begin on entitlement issues and do it in a bipartisan way. I didn't agree with every recommendation and would have tried to change some, but had I been appointed to the commission, I would have voted with Senator Coburn and Senator Durbin for the report. If those senators from far opposite sides could come together for the good of the country, then where is the President? As important as it is to tighten the federal discretionary spending belt, we will only continue to tilt at windmills with a budget ledger if we don't deal with the entitlements, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. And I believe the opportunity is to come together in a bipartisan way to put everything on the table to deal with it. And also we need a President to step up to the plate and to be an honest broker on this issue and to lead the nation. And yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back his time. For what purpose does the gentlelady from New York rise?
Mr. Speaker, I'll yield 4 minutes. Gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. McGovern.
Gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized for 4 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in very strong opposition to this rule and to the underlying continuing resolution. The spending bill that the Republican leadership is bringing before the House today is reckless, thoughtless, and heartless. And most disturbingly, it's a jobs killer. I believe that the best way to reduce our deficit and long-term debt is to grow our economy, to help businesses create jobs. At a time when our economy is emerging from the worst recession in our lifetimes, when millions of Americans are out of work and millions more are struggling to make ends meet, this continuing resolution takes exactly the wrong approach. Instead of making needed investments in education, medical research, infrastructure, and other priorities, this bill takes a meat axe to them. Instead of strengthening the middle class on Main Street, this bill gives sweetheart deals for Wall Street. Instead of investing in our workers, it protects special interest subsidies for big oil companies and hedge fund managers. A few weeks ago on this floor, Republicans told us that veterans programs, education, child nutrition, and health care research would be protected. It is clear now that those were empty promises, Mr. Speaker. For veterans, the bill eliminates a program that offers housing vouchers for homeless veterans. In education, the bill decimates the Pell Grant program by reducing the maximum award by $800 and by cutting another $4.9 billion from other education programs. For child nutrition, the bill cuts $750 million from the Women, Infants, and Children's program. And the bill slashes $2.5 billion from the National Institutes of Health, jeopardizing important research into diseases like cancer and Alzheimer's and diabetes. It destroys the Land and Water Conservation Fund, a common-sense program to preserve and protect our natural resources and outdoor recreational space, helping local economies grow. Mr. Speaker, when we brought up the prospect of these cuts a few weeks ago, we were accused of demonizing the debate. Now that we have seen the numbers before us, I'm sad to say it's worse than any of us could have predicted. I find the cuts in education funding to be particularly troublesome. As President Obama made clear in his State of the Union, we must invest in our children if we are to compete in the 21st century economy. In order to maintain our economic standing, in order to create the jobs of the future, in order to compete against China, we must have a well-educated workforce. So why on earth would we slash Pell Grants, which help millions of families, 12,000 in my district alone, pay for college? We shouldn't. This bill would also decimate important life-saving food aid programs to feed hungry children and refugees. It would literally take the food out of the mouths of some of the most vulnerable people around the world. Mr. Speaker, retreating from the global war against extreme poverty and hunger will undermine not just our moral authority, but our national security as well. I also want to point out that this bill continues the same misguided policy under Republican and Democratic presidents alike that borrows hundreds of billions of dollars to pay for the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. If we are truly serious about reducing the deficit, then those wars need to be ended or paid for. Along with colleagues like Walter Jones and others, I'm going to continue to talk about this issue. These wars are bankrupting us, and we need to have a meaningful, thorough debate about them. So again, Mr. Speaker, I believe this continuing resolution contains exactly the wrong prescription for our nation. We should be focusing on creating jobs and growing our economy. Instead, this Republican bill would lead to more unemployment, more unfairness, and more hardship for the American people. I urge my colleagues to reject this rule and reject this underlying bill. I yield back the bill.
Gentleman yields back his time. The gentleman from Georgia.
Mr. Speaker, at this time I'm proud to yield 2 minutes to the hardworking member of the Appropriations Committee, the gentleman from Georgia, Jack Kingston.
Gentleman from Georgia is recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank the Speaker and I thank the gentleman from Georgia for the time. And, Mr. Speaker, you know, yesterday we got the President's budget, and it was basically more of the same, higher taxes, more spending, more deficits. In fact, it will give us the third year of trillion-dollar deficits. And it made no mention of entitlement reform. In fact, the President ignored the recommendations of his very own hand-picked Deficit Reduction Committee. It was very disappointing. But at the same time, I want to work with the President. Where he wants to save money and reduce spending, I think it's important for Republicans to reach out and say yes. Now, it sounds to me like the Democrats want to remove themselves from that process, which is interesting because what we are debating in this $100 billion spending reduction bill is an open rule process where Democrats can put amendments on the board. And if they do agree with us, as I'm sure they do, that for every dollar we spend, 40 cents is borrowed, that our national debt is 96% of our GDP right now, and that spending each year is 25% of the GDP, a historical high, then I know they would want to act with us rather than against us and try to address this situation. So I'll say to my Democrat friends, if you feel this is too much, then offer your own spending cuts. This is what can change in Washington this year. Rather than having the same old hollow rhetorical debate, which incidentally doesn't really pull the rug out from the Republican Party, it pulls the rug out from Congress. It damages our own credibility that we can't come together as representatives of a nation and try to move the country forward together. Sure, we can skirmish over things. For example, we've got $8.5 billion in earmarks eliminated in this mark. Now, maybe they want to restore the earmarks. That's fine. We have a reduction of 149 different spending programs. Maybe they want to restore those. Maybe they want to double that amount. We go after... Could I have 30 more seconds?
I'm pleased to yield the gentleman 30 more seconds.
Gentleman's recognized for 30 seconds.
Maybe the Democrats want to insist that the stimulus money stay in there. We reduce it by, we go after the remaining portion, $2 billion. Maybe they think that's a bad thing and they should, maybe we should get more out of it. But rather than just having the same old drama over and over again, hiding behind children and seniors and Pell Grants and everything else, why not come to the table and say, here are our cuts? Mr. Speaker, this is 2.6%. That is to say that if I owed you $1, can I have 30 more seconds?
Yield the gentleman 30 more seconds.
Gentleman's recognized for 30 seconds.
That is to say, if I owed you $1 and paid you back 97 cents, sure, you might still want that 3 cents from me, but you know you're pretty doggone close. This is a 2% reduction in a $3.7 trillion budget. Now, if the Democrats don't like it, don't call it slashing and burning and all these other descriptions that are lively and make good rhetoric and good drama, but it's, if anything's irresponsible, it's irresponsible to call him a cut of 2.6% reckless. And I yield back.
The gentlelady from New York.
Mr. Speaker, I'm honored to yield 1 minute to the distinguished gentlewoman from California, the Democratic leader, Ms. Pelosi.
The gentlelady from California, the minority leader, is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I thank the gentlelady for yielding and join her in opposing this rule, urging our colleagues to vote no on the rule, no on the previous question, and no on final passage of the bill. Voting no on the previous question will enable us, if it succeeds, to bring to the floor our Build America Bonds legislation. Build America Bonds is supported on outside the Congress, across the board in a nonpartisan way by those who are building America, who are dredging our ports to enhance our trade, who are building our schools to educate our children, who are building our roads and highways and mass transit to get people to work and back, improving the quality of their lives, and in moving people and product again to work and to market, growing our economy. Creating jobs is the #1 priority for Democrats. We have said that in every measure that comes before this House. We will judge it by how it creates jobs, how it strengthens the middle class, and how it reduces the deficit. Indeed, that is what President Obama's budget, released just yesterday, will do. It will strengthen our nation, invest in the future, help create jobs, and grow the economy while reducing the deficit. By reducing the deficit by $1.1 trillion. It sets us on a path, in President Obama's words, to out-educate, out-innovate, and outbuild the rest of the world. And that is indeed what we must do. In terms of innovation and education, the President's budget is a commitment to competitiveness that will keep America #1. In terms of outbuilding the rest of the world, consider this quote of USA Today. Quote, Associated General Contractors, a trade group for the construction industry, estimates that the plan could create about 5.4 million construction jobs and 10 million more jobs in related industries and the broader economy. President Obama's budget is a tough budget, and it makes tough choices. I don't agree with everything that the President cut in the budget, but it is a statement of values that we must support. It makes cuts, and tough ones, in a responsible way. As President Obama said yesterday, we must live within our means and invest in the future. That is in stark contrast to the Republican legislation we debate today. With severe and indiscriminate spending cuts, it goes too far. This legislation will destroy American jobs while harming middle-class families, young adults, seniors, and yes, even our veterans. Since coming into office, Republicans have not put forward any initiatives to create jobs. Indeed, with this legislation, they are making matters worse. According to an independent study just released, the domestic cuts in this bill would destroy 800,000 private and public sector jobs. 800,000 private and public sector jobs. Democrats are saying no to the Republican majority. We're saying, show us the jobs. Show the American people where the jobs are. Just today, Speaker Boehner said that if jobs are lost as a result of Republican spending cuts, so be it. So be it. Is it a statement of we believe that our budget should be a statement of our national values. What is important to us must be included in our budget. Consider what the Republican legislation we debate today would do to diminish our investments in education, halt innovation, destroy good-paying American jobs, and make our neighborhoods less secure. Indeed, not even homeless veterans are spared by the Republicans. Our federal budget, as I said, must be a statement of our national values. We must ask ourselves, is this Republican legislation as a statement of our values? Is it a statement of our values to undermine our commitment to educate the next generation of leaders and innovators? The Republican proposal cuts $800 per student in the maximum Pell Grant award. Thousands of teachers would lose their jobs, and in your neighborhood, class size could increase. Is a statement of our values to diminish our efforts to create green jobs and fight disease, innovation? $1.3 billion in this bill. It cuts $1.3 billion in investments to spur clean energy economy of the future. It cuts more than $1.3 million for cancer and other disease research. In terms of innovation and education, the President's budget is a commitment to competitiveness. This legislation is not. Is it a statement of our values to destroy jobs and undermine investments in our roads, schools, bridges to rebuild America? Tens of thousands of new construction jobs would be lost, and 76 projects to upgrade our roads in your districts and bridges in 40 states would be canceled. I mentioned earlier what the general contractors said about creating millions of jobs in the industry and 10 million more jobs
indirectly. Is there a statement of our values to diminish the public safety of our neighborhoods? There would be up to 3,000 fewer cops on the beat in your neighborhood and 2,400 fewer firefighters on the job in our communities coast to coast. 3,000 fewer cops on the beat, 2,400 fewer firefighters in our communities coast to coast. Is a statement of our values to cut funding for homeless veterans? If there was one example of where this goes too far, think of it. Republicans want to eliminate $75 million. It's an initiative that offers housing vouchers to our homeless vets. It's a very effective initiative. Republicans want to cut it. And is it a statement of our values to deprive women of primary care? When it comes to health and education, Republicans put women and children last. Democrats and Republicans must work together to ensure our nation lives within its means. That's for sure. We must continue to aggressively attack waste, fraud, and abuse, and we will subject every taxpayer dollar we spend to the toughest scrutiny, ensuring that the American people are getting their money's worth. But Republicans have not presented a responsible plan for addressing the deficit. We believe we can cut the deficit and create jobs. To do so, we must invest in the future. Democrats do not subscribe to Speaker Boehner's verdict that if jobs are lost in this continuing resolution, so be it. Maybe so be it for him, but not so be it for the people who are losing their jobs. Instead, we support President Obama's budget to out-innovate, out-educate, and out-build the rest of the world. That is why, Mr. Speaker, I urge my colleagues to vote no on the previous question, no on the rule, and no on the underlying bill. Let's put this aside and get on with the business the people sent us here to do, creating jobs, reducing the deficit, strengthening of the middle class, and protecting the American people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentlelady yields back her time. For what purpose does the gentleman from Georgia rise?
Mr. Speaker, this time I'm proud to yield 2 minutes to a hardworking member of the Appropriations Committee, the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Frelinghuysen.
Gentleman from New Jersey is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank the gentleman for yielding, and I rise in support of the rule and the continuing resolution. Mr. Speaker, we would not be in this situation this afternoon if the leadership of the last Congress let the Appropriations Committee do its work last year, to act on the President's budget proposal when it came out, to debate our bills in full committee, to debate our bills on the floor. So that's why we're here today. And it would have been great if last year's House leadership had actually listened to the American people. We would not be in this situation if the President and the congressional leadership hadn't borrowed billions of dollars, mortgaging our future, to spend on multiple stimulus bills and bailouts that did little to create public sector jobs and restore consumer confidence. The Department of Energy alone had $39 billion in stimulus money, all I may say borrowed, more than $9 billion than its entire budget. It was a recipe for waste, a scattergun approach that raised many public expectations, but in the end provided few achievements and fewer yet jobs. In many cases, it created businesses in the energy sector that could not survive without more government funding. To me, it created false markets. As some described it, there was more money than some knew how to deal with. For months, those dollars were not obligated, much less spent, hiring up people in the public and private sector that the White House and the House and Senate leadership knew would eventually be laid off. Some might call it a job Ponzi scheme, a blank check owed our children. So here we are this week to pick up the pieces, right-size the ship of state, stop spending money we don't have, and restore trust with the American people that has been badly broken. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields back his time. What purpose? Well, the gentlelady from New York.
Mr. Speaker, let me take 10 seconds to just say in a column
Gentleman's
printed
recognized
Sunday
for 10 seconds.
in the New York Times, prize-winning economist Paul Krugman said the bill will sacrifice the future. And he also said Republicans don't have a mandate to cut spending. They have a mandate to repeal the laws of arithmetic. I ask unanimous consent to insert the full text of the column into the record and yield 2 minutes.
Without objection, so ordered.
2 minutes to my fellow New Yorker, Mr. Bishop,
Gentleman from New York is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise in opposition to the rule and, more importantly, in opposition to the underlying legislation. I think we all recognize that we must make painful cuts, we must make difficult cuts, but I think it's important to recognize that there is a real difference between painful cuts and difficult cuts and cuts that are destructive. And I want to focus on an area that I think the cuts will be particularly destructive. They will be destructive to ambition, destructive to aspiration, and destructive to our ability to maintain a vibrant economy. And those are the cuts that are contained in this legislation that would take $6.5 billion in 1 year out of the student financial aid programs, cutting Pell Grant by $5.6 billion, almost $5.7, and cutting SEOG, a program that has been in existence since the late 60s, completely eliminating it to the tune of $800 million a year. These cuts are destructive. We have, and the most powerful tool that we have to put our economy back on track is an educated workforce, and the most powerful tool we have to bring about the fiscal stability that we need in this country is a growing economy. That is not possible unless we have an educated workforce. 63% of the jobs that will be created over the next 6 years will require post-secondary education. 90% of the jobs that are expected to be the highest growing areas, science, technology, math, healthcare, require a post-secondary education. And yet the response of the current leadership of this Congress to that is to cut funding that allows students to go on to college. It is wrong-headed, and frankly, it is destructive of our future, and I would urge that my colleagues vote against it. I'll make one last point. The gentleman from New Jersey just said that, that if the Democrats did not listen to the American people last year, that is a continuing refrain. Well, the American people have spoken loudly and clearly about education cuts. 61% of them believe that the federal government should spend more on education, and only 11% believe that we should cut education. I yield back the balance of my time.
Time of the gentleman has expired. Without objection, the gentleman from Massachusetts will control the time on the minority side. The gentleman from Georgia.
Mr. Speaker, at this time I'm pleased to yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Iowa, Mr. Latham.
Gentleman from Iowa is recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank the gentleman from Georgia for the time. Mr. Speaker, what a difference a new Congress makes. We've seen in the last 4 years, as on the Appropriations Committee, a lack of any kind of transparent, open process. This last year, on the other side of the aisle, when they were in control, they didn't even pass a budget, a blueprint for spending. And that's why this year, Mr. Speaker, we have a $1.65 trillion deficit. 1 year, $1.65 trillion. We can't continue. The President's budget that he brought up, which is not just dead on arrival, it's debt on arrival. What this says is that we're going to double the privately held national debt, another $7 trillion. This is not fiscal restraint. This is not sanity. I have 4 grandchildren, and the reason I'm here is to make sure that they have a future. We cannot continue this outrageous spending that's going on in Washington. And when you look at this bill that we're talking about on the floor, $100 billion off of the President's proposal for this past year. That's less than 1/16 of the annual deficit. It is scratching the surface. But because there has been no budget, there has been no fiscal restraint at all in the previous 2 Congresses, this thing is totally grown way beyond what is comprehensible by any normal person. That's why, Mr. Speaker, this is the first step to bring some fiscal sanity back to Washington, D.C., to actually understand what the ramifications are long-term in spending. We cannot continue. And it's amazing to me in this rule to have an open process where people can actually have amendments. I've had some Democrat colleagues come up and say, you mean we're actually going to have amendments? They don't know how to handle that because we've had a closed process for the last 4 years. We have second-term members of Congress have never seen an open rule on an appropriation.
The gentleman has expired.
Let's pass this rule and get our house in order.
Time of the gentleman has expired. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I want to yield myself 30 seconds.
Gentleman's recognized for 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, Mr. Speaker, my friends on the other side of the aisle talk about the need to be fiscally responsible. You know, I tried last night to offer an amendment in the Rules Committee that would simply say that if you that we should pay for the Afghanistan, that we should not continue to borrow the money. Last year we borrowed, and that means our kids and our grandkids will have to bear that burden. That amendment was not made in order. I couldn't offer that amendment. We talked last night about the giveaways to the big oil companies and the need to get at those subsidies. The way the bill's written, we can't do it. We can't do it. So it's not so open. I'd like to yield now 2 minutes to the gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Andrews.
Gentleman from New Jersey is recognized.